Alright, check it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, disciples and disciples, lovers and haters alike. Welcome to another live Q&A session or Q&A marathon, or some like to call it the HD show. Bidnillahi ta'ala, before we get started with some of the questions that we have tonight, I would like to share with you, brothers and sisters, a few books, alhamdulillah, that I got as gifts, alhamdulillah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing better than that. Getting a gift, everyone loves gifts, let alone a gift of what? Of knowledge, of ilm. It can't get what? Can't get better than that. So the other day, I think it was Monday, I came into the Masjid and I saw a piece of paper on the floor in this thingy here, mihrab or whatever you want to call it, where the imam stands. And it was a note, and I immediately recognized the style of the Arabic. It was a long note. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, kada kada kada. We are students from the Islamic University of Medina. If you have time for us, we would like to sit with you, we would like to visit you, so on and so forth. So alhamdulillah, I replied to the number on the message, and I apologize for me not being at that salat because I wasn't here. And I told them that I would come on Tuesday and meet them. So it was a group of brothers, alhamdulillah. Most of them were from the Islamic University of Medina, and a few others were like, those driving them, accompanying them. And it was a very, very, very nice meeting that we had. It was very nice to see the young brothers, new faces. It was refreshing. It was invigorating. What that hummed. They asked me for advice. I asked them for advice. And I asked them about Medina and the college and what's new, so on and so forth. Yeah, it was. You can smell it. The smell of Medina was there, inshallah. So alhamdulillah, one of those students, and I'm talking about actual students of knowledge here, okay? Brothers have actually traveled overseas and studied, not just, people that haven't studied. Actual tulab al-ilm, yani. People actually sit down and study with the actual scholars, not on umrah, but actual studying with them throughout the year. So alhamdulillah, some of them were in the College of Sharia, others were in the College of Dawah, even though they have different names of the colleges now. And alhamdulillah, one of the brothers was from Minnesota, very beautiful brother. Like all of the brothers were beautiful, may Allah bless them all and give them the tawfiq. He gave me a gift, walillahi alhamd. And the name of the book, this was the gift, is called Rawdatul Uqala wa Nuzhatul Fudala by Ibn Hibban al-Busti, rahimahullah, of the 4th century, from the Muhaddithin of the 4th century. And he wrote a book discussing many, many, many different things. And subhanAllah, I had the book. I bought the book before, but not this copy. All right, some years back in Medina. And the first page, when I opened up in the book, obviously I saw the note that he left me, alhamdulillah. I won't mention the brother's name. Maybe he doesn't want his name mentioned live. But he wrote me a note, alhamdulillah, devoting a gift to me. May Allah bless him. And I haven't opened up the book, and it said, chapter number 22, ذِكْرُ الزَّجْرِ عَنِ التَّحَاسُدِ وَالْبَغْضَاءِ. And Allah is my witness, it wasn't stunted, or I opened up the book and that was the first page that I came up on, was the prohibition of envy and hatred. The prohibition of envy and hatred. Okay? Ibn Hibban, rahimahullah ta'ala, the hadith, or the book is obviously Musnad. It's Kitab Musnad. It has chains of narrations. It says, أنبأنا محمد بن حسين ابن مكرم البزاز بالبصرة حدثنا عمرو بن علي الفلاس قال حدثنا أبو عاصم عن ابن جريج قال حدثني عطاء أنه سمع أبا هريرة رضي الله عنه يقول قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تباغضوا ولا تحاسدوا ولا تدابروا وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا. قال أبو حاتم رضي الله عنه الواجب على العاقل مجانبة الحسد على الأحوال كلها، فإن أهون خصال الحسد هو ترك الرضا بالقضاء وإرادة ضد ما حكم الله جل وعلا لعباده، ثم انطواء الضمير على إرادة زوال النعم عن المسلم. والحاسد لا تهدأ روحه ولا يسكن قلبه ولا يستريح بدنه إلا عند رؤية زوال النعمة عن أخيه وهيئات أن يساعد القضاء ما للحساد في الأحشاء. The first thing that he mentions, wa alaikum salam, with his chain of narration is the famous narration, the famous hadith of Abu Hurairah in which the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تباغضوا, do not hate each other, ولا تحاسدوا, do not envy each other, ولا تدابروا, do not scheme and plot on each other, وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا, and be ikhwans, be brothers. Beautiful advice for every Muslim from the Prophet ﷺ, especially in the month of what? Ramadan. And we know that many of the Salaf al-Salih, they would say, or their attitude and their behavior before the month of Ramadan began, is that they would try to free their hearts min ghil, from malice towards other Muslims, towards nastiness, towards what? Other Muslims. That was how many of them would prepare for the month of what? Of Ramadan, by making sure their hearts were clean and pure against any other believer. Abu Hatim rahimahullah, he says, that's his kunya. Abu Hatim, that's how the ulama of the past, they wrote books, they will mention their kunyas. Qultu, they said, Qala Abu Fulan, Qala Abu Isa. Abu Hatim, he said, it's mandatory upon the sane person, he who has aql, he who's sane. And not, the word intellectual is not always the proper translation of the word aql. Because someone could be intellectual and someone could be sane without being actual what? Intellectual. Intellectual is a different, higher plane of person. Someone who has aql. He says it's mandatory upon this person to avoid envy. Ala al-ahwali kulliha, in all situations. Avoid jealousy and envy all of the time. And that's because the smallest problem with envy and jealousy is a person being displeased with Allah's pre-decree. A person being displeased with what Allah has decreed upon this one and for that person. And a person wanting other than what Allah has made for His servants. Allah made you handsome, but I want you to be ugly. Allah made you physically strong, but I want you to be weak. You're not pleased with Allah's hukum, His judgment, His ruling, what Allah has mandated and ordained. He says here, then after that smallest problem, he says, ثُمَّ انْتِوَاءُ الضَّمِيرِ, is a person's heart concealing and hiding, wanting to strip the blessing from another Muslim. A person, he hides and he harbors a person wanting another's failure or destruction or ruin. I don't want you to shine, basically. You're gleaming because Allah allowed you to gleam. I want you to be rusty and dusty and muddy. That's a serious problem. Ibn Hibban rahimahullah, he says here, and the hasid is never at peace with himself. La tahda'u ruhu. He's never at peace with himself. His soul is never at rest. وَلَا يَسْكُنُ قَلْبُهُ. His heart is never what? In a serene state. وَلَا يَسْتَرِيحُ بَدْنُهُ. And his body is always jumpy and uncomfortable, and he's never still until the blessing is taken away from the person whom he envies. Once we see you fall, then we're what? We're happy, or I'm happy now. After your beautiful face is now scarred and scratched up, now I can do what? I can sleep at night. He says, and how can what these people have in their insides, how can that support Allah's qada? How can that help Allah taking something away from you, what is inside their hearts and their bodies? It'll never work. What Allah wills and decrees would never ever go inside or coincide with what? The malice and envy that people may have in their hearts. So that was the first part of the book that I came across, alhamdulillah, and I read it to those brothers who came to visit me, and I'm reading it to each and every one of you. This is nothing new. Alhamdulillah, the evil of hasad is well known to the ulama of Islam, and alhamdulillah, we've done many classes and lectures on this. Rather, the last talk that we did in the UK was on what? Was on hasad, was on envy, from the words of Ibn Taymiyyah, quoting from Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala, when he was asked, Ayahsudul mu'min, can a believer have jealousy and envy? And Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala, says, Ma ansaka ikhwatu Yusuf, la aban lak. He says, have you forgotten about the story of Yusuf? May you have no father. So it's a very important point that we mentioned, without no other intentional or ulterior motive, is why people deny the reality of hasad. Everyone understand this? They act like it doesn't exist. And that's why that man asked Hasan al-Basri that question. Can a believer fall into hasad? Hasan never said it's impossible, it doesn't exist. And he says, what? Have you not read? What? May you have no father. Meaning, what a dumb question you've just asked me. Everyone understand this? So oftentimes, many people, they go extreme with these things. Of affirming hasad or what? Rejecting it. Everyone understand this? Khayr, inshallah. So that's the name of the book, and that's a fa'idah for the tulab of hadith and the tulab al-ilm. If you can come across this book, and if you're not a student of knowledge or you don't read Arabic, maybe your local imam or resident scholar can read some fawaid from the book to you, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, I got another book Walillahi alhamd, from the blessed lands, called Al-Jami' Al-Musnad Al-Mustakhraj ala Sahih Al-Imam Al-Bukhari, Al-Imam Abi Hafs Umar ibn Muhammad Al-Bujayli, Kitab Al-Tafsir. It's called Al-Jami' Al-Musnad Al-Mustakhraj. And basically Al-Mustakhraj, as it's mentioned here in this book, and as we have explained in our series on the compilation of the Sunnah, is a genre of books of hadith. Just like there's a Sahih, there's a Sunan, there's Mustadrak, there's Musnad, we have that which is called Al-Mustakhraj. And the Mustakhraj is basically an author came before me, I come behind him, I collect the same hadiths that he has collected, but with a different route. But there is a general linking or meeting point or merging point between me and him. So let's say, for example, if Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah has 3 people between him and the Prophet for the statement, he who lies upon me. I come after Imam al-Bukhari, al-Bujaydi, when did he die? 311. Bukhari died when? 256 in the 3rd century. Some years, so he came after him, okay? He comes along and he collects that same hadith with 5 people in the isnad. And then obviously 1, 2, then the 3rd person is going to be Bukhari's first person. Or he can have the same amount of people in the chain, but he comes with a different person and then he meets up with them. It's like taking a different route but getting to the same destination. No, not even the same destination. Getting on and off the highway. You got off at what? Liberty. You got on and I got on at what? Linden, Methylene. Everyone understand this? And then we do what? We link up on the Van Wyck. Everyone understand this? And it's fawaid of istikhraj. The ulama of hadith, they mention many benefits behind scholars writing books like this. From them is if there's a mubham person in the original sanad, oftentimes the mustakhraj will point out who he is. In the chain of Abu Dawud or Tirmidhi or Bukhari, it says Rajul, for example. And Bujayri will come along, or Ismaili, or this one, and he'll say Abdullah ibn Fulan. Or there could be Adam al-Tasrih bis-Sama'. He may say An. And the mustakhraj will come and he'll say Sami'tu, I heard. You understand? So there are many fawaid of istikhraj, the mutaba'at, takfir, the turuq, so on and so forth. There are many different benefits that come from this type of genre, which is called al-mustakhraj. And this is a detailed, or this is a genre of the sciences of what? Of hadith, al-mustakhraj. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah bless you and bless the one who gave it to you. Khairan, inshallah. That's enough book showing off right now. Let's get to some questions, inshallah, if we have any. And if not, may Allah bless you all.
This was in New York City, New York. What is the punishment for someone separating the ties of kin?
Question comes from New York. Punishment for severing the ties of kin is what Allah has mentioned in the Quran. Several different punishments. First and foremost is a person being described as being a fasiq. Fisq. And what happens if a person is a fasiq and if a person yuhkam alayhi bil fisq is considered to be upon fisq? That's a serious problem. Okay, Allah mentions the fasiqeen and those who break what Allah has what? Ma amara Allahu bihi an yusala. Okay? Tayyib. Also the concept of the curse of Allah mentions in the Quran and Kareem those who tuqat'u their what? Arham. They separate the ties of kin. So there are different punishments. First and foremost is a person being a fasiq, a person being an asi, it's a disobedience. Allah clearly mentions wal arham, do not sever the ties of kin, do not sever the ties of kith. And it depends on the level of severing. You being distant from someone is not like you cursing someone. You cursing someone is not like you hitting someone, or maybe even worse. Sometimes cursing is worse than physical hitting. Okay? You making a systematic way of cutting off the ties of kin. It's not like you just being busy. Or you being lazy. You're not making the necessary effort, what? To keep the ties of kin. That's not like you intentionally doing what? Cutting the ties. Don't call me, don't contact me, I changed my number, I've moved to a different location, I don't want to have anything to do with you. It's a difference. So there are different levels of what? Qati'ah. But what it relies on that is all a sin. Okay? And it's from the major sins. And some of it, or some of the aspects of it are worse than what? Others. That's in brief. Wallahu a'lam. Fatal.
Someone who's someone is a beginner, but he has a specialty in a certain field, what's the right to use for the basic Muslim? What advice?
With regards to a beginner, and a person has a specialty in a certain field, can he write something? Can he give some type of dawah to new Muslims? It's nothing wrong with that. Just because a person is a beginner or even a student of knowledge, it doesn't mean that you can't give anything. You can't do anything. It doesn't mean that you can't give a class. It doesn't mean that you can't give a benefit. The problem comes in a person stepping beyond the boundaries. The problem comes in a person talking about someone else, throwing a stone, and they live in a what? A glass house. You've just begun over to study. You just went overseas. Let alone you didn't go overseas and study. Obviously, you can't do what? Throw rocks at others who have been what? Overseas. Okay. Also, the concept of need. Is there a need for you to write the book or to give the class or to give the speech, or can someone else do it? If there's a need for you to do it and there's no one else that can do it, you do it. And that's a reward, even if you're still a beginner or you're still a student of knowledge, you're not a sheikh or scholar, and that's not haram. The problem is overstepping the what? Boundaries, talking about those who actually have done it. There is no need, there's someone else that can do it. You stepping in front of someone else who what? Awla mink, who deserves it more, or the percentage being off, in which a person is still studying, but their output is too much instead of their what? Intake. Listen carefully to these words. And it's very important advice for myself and for each and every one of us. Your output and your intake. How much do you give dawah? How much you're actually sucking in yourself. So for argument's sake, you give this class, you write a book, tayyib, jazakallahu khairan. It's needed. But it can't be a thing in which you don't have time. And many brothers, they say things like this. I can't go overseas because I have responsibilities. Wallahi. And I'm not talking about no one specific, but many brothers, they make this statement. I can't go study now because I'm a what? I'm an imam of a masjid. That's what? That's backwards. I can't go overseas because I'm busy with dawah. It's supposed to be the what? The opposite. I got to go overseas first and I can't give this full-time dawah because I'm studying. But I'll give a little class. I'll write a little book. You brothers come and visit me. I'll help out. No problem. Be very mindful of input versus what? Intake. Very, 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 very dangerous. And one of the traps and the tricks of the shaitan. Thinking that you have to do something and you didn't start the proper way, which is what? Fa'lam annahu la ilaha. No, none has the right to be worshipped but what? Illallah. Then after that, Allah says what? Wastaghfir lidhanbika. And then seek forgiveness for your sins. It's one of the earliest lessons that we learn in al-usul al-thalatha, that knowledge comes before speech and action. This is very, very, very scary. One of the first books of aqeedah that we study, one of the first books of da'wah that we're supposed to study is al-usul al-thalatha. And that's what Ibn Abdul Wahhab said. Al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal. Knowledge comes first, not da'wah and actions. That comes what? Afterwards. But for argument's sake, you're in a place, you have a responsibility, no problem. But the percentage has to be what? It got to be 70% studying, 30% giving back. Everyone understand that? And it can't be the opposite, which many, many of us, it's like that. Let alone those who haven't even what? Formally studied. Which is, as we've said many times before, that is the foundation of the madhab as-salaf. Is al-ilm, knowledge. That's the asal of asma wa sifat, of this, of that is what? It's ilm. Alright? So oftentimes, people they ask with regards to, how do I know I'm upon the truth? How do I know this da'wah organization is upon the truth? How do I know there's so many different people? Maybe you can use a scale. And from the scales is how much knowledge is there. How much knowledge is being pumped and pushed and propagated. How much knowledge does this teacher of this institute actually what? Have. How do you know what a person's knowledge? There are different ways. One of the ways of determining is actual what? Training, formal training. Where have you actually what? Studied for a considerable amount of time in which you've been evaluated by the ulama, by the teachers, and they've given you a stamp. You have passed these exams. Not a general praise, not a general recommendation, not brother fulan or no. We said what? Formal education with evaluation. And it doesn't have to be a university. It doesn't what? It doesn't have to be a university. You understand? If you went to Egypt and you studied there for 6 years or 10 years, and you studied with those mashayikh, and they taught you and they tested you, you say what? Alhamdulillah. You went to Pakistan, you went to Mali or South Africa, and you were evaluated by people of knowledge, you say what? It doesn't have to be an Islamic university, in which is a test and a degree. Nah, we didn't say that. But it has to be something what? Formal. And obviously those who do the formal education, and they sit and they study with the mashayikh, that's even what? Without a question. Because there's nothing like proper evaluation. You understand this? What? Proper evaluation. You can sit in 1,000 classes. That doesn't mean that you've understood. And we prove that when we ask what? questions. In our classes, they're interactive. Just because you sit in a class doesn't mean you actually what? No. You can only prove that you know after what? Evaluation. Tell me the conditions of this. Give me this. Mention this. No, that's wrong. I didn't say that. We didn't quote that. So it's very, very, very important, huh? But there's nothing wrong with doing it and helping out with those what? With those conditions. Wallahu alam.
Bishop 8, OA, Real PSA, may Allah bless you. Can you explain the significance of and function of the items that are usually on your desk?
Question is from King Riyadh, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Can you explain the function and the significance of the items that are normally on your desk? There are many items on the desk from time to time. Sometimes it's an hourglass. Sometimes you'll find an ink pot. Sometimes you'll find ink bottles. Sometimes you find quills, feathers, pens. Sometimes they're different books. Sometimes it's a tea kettle, teacup. Sometimes it could be an actual gourd. They're different things. Some things we use to tell time, such as an hourglass. We use the hourglass to actually gauge the time of the class, let alone the hourglass with that hum. Walaikum salam. It gives a nice, good, nostalgic feel. Okay, and this is one of the most important things that we like are old things and antique things. Not everything. We use technology. We're in the modern world, but we like old things, and old things have an effect. A very important concept is antiquity. All right. Also, if something may be representative of HadithDisciple, black and yellow, or some things we may use as a means of symbolicism to the way of Hadith, such as the quill and the ink pot. Okay, it was a sign, a mark of someone who was a student of Hadith if he had a quill and an ink pot on his desk. And sometimes we may have books that we're reading from, or sometimes we may need books that we're referencing from or showing you. وهكذا. It all depends, huh? It what? It all depends. Jazakallah khairan. Fadil akhi.
I got a question. I came across a hadith that it said prayer is not valid if food is presented or what happened to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
Doing the number one or two.
Okay.
I understood it as, let's say if I had to do a number one, and then I didn't want to break my rule, I wanted to pray, my prayer wasn't valid then.
Okay. Tayyib. Question is with regards to a hadith that says prayer is not accepted when food is present and when a person has to relieve himself, whether it's number one or number two. So if I have to urinate and I pray, and I didn't want to break my wudu, doesn't mean my prayer isn't accepted, so on and so forth. Jazakallah khairan. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that translation if you read that in a book, okay, that the prayer is not accepted. La salata, there's no prayer. You shouldn't pray. Instead of the prayer isn't accepted. At the end of the day, that's an authentic hadith and well-known hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says there should be no prayer. La salata. There should be no prayer. Bihadrati ta'am. When there's food. Wala wuhu yudafi'uhu al-akhbathan. Nor when he has the two akhbath, the two foul things fighting with him, meaning relieving himself. What's meant by this hadith is that if a person has to use the bathroom, he should do that first. That way he gives his body its rights, which is the way to giving Allah his rights. Eating first. That way you're not thinking about food, you're not distracted, the food smells really good, okay, and you're hungry. Eat first, give your body its rights, and then you have the ability to give Allah his proper rights with khushu', prayer, with concentration, with submissiveness, with stillness, so on and so forth. Okay? Doesn't mean that if you do the opposite, that the prayer isn't invalid and not accepted by Allah, not necessarily, unless a person was in an extreme case, in which person really had to use the bathroom and they're shaking and dancing and just, moving so much. That's one thing. But if a person had to use the bathroom just a bit, I would prefer to use the bathroom, but right now I'm traveling, or the bathroom isn't that clean, or I have to make wudu again, I'm in the airport, or whatever the case may be, that's fine. It's not best, but it's what? It's okay. It doesn't mean that the prayer is invalid. All right? And the same applies to food. Now, if a person had to eat, and a person was starving, and he says, I want to pray first, I want to make tarawih first, don't do that. Eat first. Okay? The ulama of Islam, they have a very long discussion with regards to these things. Is it obligatory to eat first and use the bathroom first? Or is it just recommended? That's a very long discussion, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Clear, inshallah? Wa iyyakum.
Question on the floor?
Fadal.
With regards to personal taste and being a student in the culture of
Clear. With regards to the culture of a student of knowledge, the culture of a Muslim, having your own taste, your own style, how far can you go, what is considered to be too far, so on and so forth. طيب. Well, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, in many of his books, he talks to different crowds and different audiences. And that's why the scholars of Islam, they say that it's a capital mistake to just take Ibn Taymiyyah's words and always apply them to every situation and every person. And that's because Ibn Taymiyyah wasn't just writing just to Muslims or Sunni Muslims or Muslims with the correct Aqeedah wa Asma wa Sifat or the Qadr or the Sahaba. Oftentimes Ibn Taymiyyah is speaking to different what? Audiences. Whether he's speaking to them, addressing them, challenging them, debating them, or whether he's making taqreer. He's establishing the truth, speaking to someone who's on the fitrah, speaking to someone who's already a scholar, etc. So Ibn Taymiyyah has different audiences. So this is one of the reasons why we find a very consistent style in many of his books, and that is al-istidlalu bil-muttafaq alayh ala al-mukhtalaf fi, or al-istidlalu bil-mu'talif ala al-mukhtalif. Okay, or al-muftariq. Is that a person, he does what? Ibn Taymiyyah, he says that he uses a principle that is agreed upon to lead the person to a principle which the people what? They differ on. Starting at a neutral ground, as we said. That which is agreed upon. And then stepping gradually to that which the people actually what? Don't agree on. So it's an extremely important qaida that Ibn Taymiyyah mentions in many of his books. You read his books, you'll find this. If he's talking to someone from the Ash'a'ira or Ahlul Kalam or the Mu'tazila, you find him mentioning things that they agree on. And then ... you have to accept this. But before all of this, the Quran al-Kareem, Allah mentions his rububiyyah to force them to accept his what? His uluhiyyah. Did everyone understand this? Tawheed al-rububiyyah necessitates and requires al-uluhiyyah. Everyone understand this? It doesn't include it, but it what? It necessitates it. If you accept Allah as the only Lord, then you have to accept him as being the only one who is worship. Everyone understand this? And that is why Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions these things. طيب. We're not going to go any further on that and how many different directions we can take that in. What's the point of even mentioning this thing to someone who isn't a Muslim unless you're trying to do what?
Bring them Islam.
Common sense. We'll show you that, okay? The point I'm trying to make is that let's start off with that which we agree upon. And then we can move towards that which we disagree on. So what's halal and what's haram with regards to your own style? A person says, I like gold. I like solid gold. I like gold watch. I like a gold chain. I like a gold ring, gold teeth. That's my style. We say that can't be your style if you're a man. Because solid gold is what? It's haram for a Muslim man. So we agree on that. Another brother says, my style was to wear silk. Silk is smooth, it's nice, I can breathe with it, so on and so forth. I like to wear silk. That's my style. When I wear a silk suit, people look at me, they respect me, I can do this. When it comes to them, I can breathe, so on and so forth. We say that can't be your what? That can't be your style. And any other thing upon which the Muslims agree that it's haram to have that as your what? Style. As far as that which the ulama of Islam differ, some say yes, some say no, there's more room. A person may say, I like to wear my pants beneath my ankles. I don't consider it haram. Most of the ulama of Islam don't consider it to be haram. Most of them, the overwhelming majority. It's not saying that it's right, but I'm trying to make a point. That's my style. These are the pants I like to wear. I like to go to a college, or I teach, or I have an academic debate. I don't go in there with my trousers high. They're normal beneath my, that's my style. I may say that's not my style. I like mine to be above my ankles. Now this is mukhtalif. We differ on that. I can't criticize you for your what? For your style. Everyone understand this? Third step or level is that which is clearly permissible. There's no difference of opinion. It's no problem. You do it. It's unconventional. It's unorthodox. That's your what? Wear whatever you want to wear. You want to wear green, red, blue? Tafadal. You like to wear this kind of shirt. You like to wear this type of design or logo. That's you. And this is what I like to wear. Ohio State. This is my style. Why are you wearing a red hoodie? Because I what? I like to wear a red hoodie. Is it an authentic hadith that I can't wear red? Is it an authentic hadith that you can't wear Ohio State? That's my what? That's my style. So the basic rule is that as long as it's not haram, it's not an innovation, it's not impermissible, then you can do it on one or two levels. Either it's totally permissible, or is an issue of ikhtilaf, and you hold that view that it's permissible to wear red. Obviously, the one in the middle, you have to be a bit more cautious. And one may say, if there's a difference of opinion and you're a student of knowledge, you're a speaker, you should stay away from it. Even though it could be halal, but you should what? But that's always going to be what? That's subjective. All khilaf isn't strong. And even if the khilaf isn't strong, it doesn't mean that you have to follow the precaution if you feel that it's what? Permissible. With the dalil. The Prophet ﷺ wore red. The hadith about wearing red, sir, says they're da'if. That's my view. Is ikhtilaf, I'm a speaker, I'm in front of the people, I'm in public, but I want to wear red. That's my style. There's nothing wrong with that. So as long as it is not haram, if there's a difference of opinion, you have your proof, you have your evidence, and it isn't something which is really, really, really outlandish, which is unbefitting, even if it isn't haram, there's nothing wrong with that. And the Prophet ﷺ was asked about a man having nice clothes, about a man having nice shoes. Is that pride? We know what the Prophet, he said that's not pride. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ, when he saw the man and he had on the tattered clothes, and he asked him, what type of wealth do you have? And the man informed him of the wealth that he has. I have land, I have farms, I have slaves, I have so on and so forth, much wealth. And he says, Inna Allah idha an'ama ala abdin ahabba an yura atharu ni'mati alayhi. Allah likes to see the effects of those blessings on his servants. So your style is open for whatever you like. As long as it's not haram, as long as it's nothing which is unbefitting, you are free to do what? What you want to do. Whether that pertains to the style of dress, or whether that pertains to the style of teaching. If you want to do a talk walking, you want to do a talk sitting, you want to do a talk in an airplane or in a car, no one can say, oh, that's unbefitting. You shouldn't do a talk standing up. Why not? Because it wasn't done in the past, that doesn't mean that it's impermissible. Everyone understand this? Let alone we live in a changing world in which flexibility, maneuverability, and elasticity are extremely important. 3 principles. Flexibility, maneuverability, and what? Elasticity. You got to be elastic. You got to be able to stretch, to contract. You got to be able to adjust and to reach people different times, different situations, different cultures, different races, different religions. And as we said before, a very, very important point for da'wah in 2019 is how we live. We live as Muslim minorities. We live as minorities. We are not the majority. So we have to be mindful of that. We live in a secular world. Not a secular country, but a what? A secular world in which there's church and state in most of the places in which you go. Maybe not all, but what? Most of them. Even in the lands of the Muslims. That's how it is. So you have to be mindful. Why am I remaining upon this old way? Is it obligatory? Is it recommended? Or is it just the way that they used to do it back then? Even though it isn't the most effective way. Rather, the people are not listening. They're not coming. You have to be mindful. Then you also have to be mindful of your level of knowledge. A scholar has to carry himself in a way. Someone who's just a da'iyah has to what? Carry himself in a way. Even though, is there a difference or should there be a difference between a scholar and a caller? That needs to be investigated. The people today who separate the two, he's a da'iyah, he's a scholar. Isn't a scholar also supposed to be a caller? هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله. Everyone understand this? So everyone is supposed to be a caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And many people, last but not least, the last part of my answer is a piece of advice for many students of knowledge and brothers that come back from the overseas. They come to the United States and they says, I don't want to be an imam. I don't want to be an imam. I'm a scholar. I'm a researcher. I'm a resident scholar. I'll just give the lecture. I won't do this. Subhanallah, yani, as if being an imam is a bad thing. As if it's a negative and derogatory thing. As if you've been demoted from status by you being the leader of people. Everyone understand this? The Prophet ﷺ was a what? Everyone understand this? وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ imaman. The text of being an imam. Everyone understands being a leader. And the same applies to da'wah. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا. Who's better in statement? مَمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Allah says no one is better in statement than he who calls to Allah, performs righteous deeds, and declares himself to be a what? A Muslim. Who's better than him? So we have to be mindful and we have to be careful of these foreign elements coming upon our Islamic understanding of a da'iyah, of a scholar, of an imam. I don't want to be this, I'll be that. Why can't you be both? And most importantly is the wise man, he once said, he said what? He said, cry east, strike west. Cry east, strike west. You figure that out and you get the whole entire concept of what can and cannot be your what? Your style. Wallahu a'lam.
Question was SE in Germany. Are you allowed to correct the recitation of someone who's praying aloud if you're not praying with them?
Can you correct someone's recitation? They make a mistake and you're not praying with them. Yes, you can correct them. There's nothing wrong with that. You can correct them, even if you're not in a salah yourself.
Question was NH, Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum. Hope your Ramadan is going well. Is it permissible for females in their menses to sit in the masjid?
Questions from Toronto, Canada. Can a woman who's menstruating sit in the masjid? Yes, she can.
Question was ES Oxford. Mention was OA Riyadh PSA. On March 26, 2012, this channel was created and the first video was uploaded. What are your thoughts and reflections 7 years on?
With regards to HadithDisciple, where's the question from?
Riyadh PSA.
Riyadh KSA. How many years ago? You said what?
7.
7 years ago. Hadith studies. What are your thoughts and reflections? That a lot of work is needed. A lot of work is needed. That's my thoughts and reflections on HadithDisciple. Is that there's a ton of work that's needed. Improvements, enhancements, more consistency, more sincerity, more hard work, and more service to the people. That's my thoughts.
Sheikh, Assalamu
Walaikum salam to Allah.
I was at Juma and I see a brother reading the Quran and not listening to the khutbah. So I want to know that.
That's wrong. When the khutbah is being given, you're supposed to listen to the khutbah. Don't busy yourself with anything else, nothing else. That's wrong. That's incorrect.
Which was AA, London, UK. When you speak about 18-degree Fajr.
With regards to 18-degree Fajr, 18-degree Fajr is no different than 15-degree Fajr, 12-degree Fajr, etc. It's a very technical issue. And if you yourself don't have skill in that science, or even just a basic grasp, you're going to be lost. How many of us today who walk around or drive around or fly around or train around understand these issues of calculation? Nautical calculation. The sun, the moon, water. Who really has knowledge of that stuff? The best from among us has some basic understanding of the cardinal directions. North, south, east, west, so on and so forth. Most of us. How many people drive without GPS today? People drive limousines, taxis, and they all use GPS. But you just want to go southwest, go north. This is 80 east. This is 678 west. This is Keva. This is Keva. Oftentimes people get confused. They don't even know the basic directions, let alone where the directions come from. How is the time, the day and the night calculated? What's the difference between a lunar calendar versus a what? A solar calendar. What's the difference between a Chinese calendar, a common era, a Viking era, this era? It's confusing because people are so far from the natural elements. They're so far from the natural elements. You make an example of food. You'd be shocked if you give someone some food and you point it to a chicken. They wouldn't be able to break down the part of the chicken that it is. What do you think about that? Take this knife and this whole chicken and dissect it, cut it up. Cut me the breast. Give me, debone, take the thigh out. Do this. What's a chicken cutlet? People don't even know. Because everything that they eat is always what? Prepared for them. Cut, sliced, packaged is given to them. So the people have become further from the natural what? Element. And the same applies to degrees. When does Fajr come in? What's meant by those hadiths? What's meant by the horizon? What is the white thread from the black thread? What's al-Fajr al-Kadhib and Fajr al-Sadiq? The average person doesn't have a clue. The average student of knowledge doesn't have a clue because of the modern world. So when you start getting to an 18-degree Fajr that's right, instead of 15-degree Fajr right, it's going to be brain warping. And the best thing to do is to follow those whom you trust. Trust the most. This makes the most sense to me. I feel this is the most correct what these scholars are saying. As far as if you have science and ilm of the sharia and the fiqh, then you have to follow what you feel is best. 18 degrees versus 15 degrees versus 12 degrees. Regardless of this masjid and what? And that masjid. Last but not least, last piece of advice is you have to make sure that you're not just following your desires. You can't just say 18-degree Fajr because it's more convenient of time. It gives me 30 more minutes of Fajr, 20 more minutes of Suhoor. La. It has to be based off of sincerity. That you honestly believe in your heart, this is mandatory. All right. So that's my advice on the situation. Alhamdulillah. Many scholars, they debate on these issues with regards to the time calculations in the United States and the United Kingdom. And from that long discussion is 18-degree Fajr, especially in the UK. Especially in the UK. If you want more knowledge on the subject, you have to read those websites of those researchers, those scholars, and those scientists who have detailed discussion of 18-degree Fajr. And if you don't have the time or the ability, you're just going to become what? Lost. And Allah knows best.
I came across a statement saying that if you and one of your brothers are having a disagreement, right? And you're not giving the salams to him, that one's told was not accepted.
Tayyib. With regards to if you're having a disagreement with your brother and you don't give salams to your brother, you don't speak to him, your tawbah will not be accepted. There are many narrations with regards to at-tashahun, okay, illa li mushahin, whether it's hadiths on the middle of Shaban, 27th day of Shaban, or general hadiths with regards to people not being people not being forgiven. Allah will forgive every single Muslim on this night, on this day, illa li mushahin, except for one who has a grudge or a beef with his brother and he's not talking to him. There are many narrations like this. Some of them are more authentic than others. Some of them are weaker than others. Al-Muhim, the general concept is that it's impermissible to boycott and abandon your brother for more than 3 days unless it is a serious issue pertaining to the rights of Allah. The rights of Allah. Me and you, we fought over something, over a sister that we were going to get married to. You married her, I didn't marry her. I'm upset. I'm mad. I'm a little jealous. All right? Sore, tight, salty, whatever statement you want to use. Philly, New York, whatever. I'm upset. Right? I'm mad. I wanted the sister, you married her. So therefore, I feel that you may have slighted me. You went behind my back. Whatever the case may be. Don't call me. Don't tell me your wedding. I don't care. Day number 1. Day number 2. Mufti, Assalamu alaikum. Let's go get some tea. Nah, get out of here. Permissible. Day number 3. Mufti, I'm sorry. So what? Day number 4. La. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I apologize. You apologize, etc. You have to move on. Unless it's an issue pertaining to the rights of Allah. I'm drinking alcohol in public, openly. And he says, I won't speak to you until you stop drinking alcohol. He can do that for 40 days, 100 days. Until I do what? Put down the alcohol. Or any other issue of disobedience to Allah and His Messenger. A person calling to misguidance. The misguidance is clear, it's plain. The proof is established. This person is harming the Muslims, calling to this evil. We say what? We'll what? Boycott him. Until he makes what? Tawbah. Or any other act of mukhalafah to Allah and His Messenger, and which is a harm to the Muslims, based off of the rules that the ulama of Islam have explained. Listen carefully. The rules of the ulama with regards to when you make hajj and when you what? Don't make it. There's dawabit. There are what? There are regulations for boycotting someone. So therefore, if you refuse to stop boycotting a Muslim, then it could be a means of you being punished. And it could be a means of your tawbah not being accepted. And that's because you're not giving this Muslim his basic what? Rights. And many people, they take this lightly. Many people. And woe to the scholars who encourage those ignorant young students of knowledge to behave like this. Woe to them. Only Allah knows the sins that they could possibly bear on the day of judgment for planting that in those people's minds. That if your brother doesn't sit in the class with you, or he doesn't do this with you, or he said this, or just boycott him, cut him off. I won't give him salams, I won't speak with him. That's very, very, very dangerous. Let alone the fact that the people that you do speak to and talk to, of a kafir, a mushrik, an uncovered woman, of someone who's even further from the sunnah and the way of the salaf than what we supposedly are. So that's another point. If you're going to make hijr, then you have to make what? Hijr. The fasiq, the asi, the mubtadi', anyone who's against Allah and His Messenger. With the proper regulations, and it's time to make hajj, then you what? You make it. You can't pick and choose who you want to make hajj from. I won't speak to you, but a non-Muslim person will cross say, hey, hello, how are you? And open up the door for him. It doesn't work like that. You hate anything that's against Allah, what? And His Messenger. Openly, publicly, that's a harm to the people. And if not, you either want to accept it all, speak to everyone all, or You're going to pick and choose based off of the what? The rules. And not just doing what you want to do. You sit with this teacher in Islam University of Medina who's clearly a deviant according to you, but you don't speak to this brother outside of the university who's a deviant according to you. What's the difference now? Except for what? Picking and choosing what's convenient for you. So hajr has to be for Allah. And it can only what? Be for Allah. I've boycotted you because I believe you're being disobedient to Allah and His Messenger. And it's a benefit in me boycotting you, or protection in me boycotting you. And it's making you go back to the haqq. Not I boycott you because I don't like you, or because any other personal reason. Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah, Sheikh. It is the correct way of raising the hand in the witr salah. And can you demonstrate?
Correct way of raising the hands in the witr prayer. First question is, do you even raise your hands in qunut al-witr? That's question number one. Should you raise your hands when you make the qunut in the witr? That's first and foremost. Tayyib. Secondly is, how do you raise the hands? And can you demonstrate? There are some people who say that there are different modes of raising the hands. Whether it be like this, like you're catching water. Whether it be open like this. Whether it be like this, with your hands up, so on and so forth. There are some who mention different levels of raf'ul yadayn, of raising the hands. Okay? When the Prophet ﷺ was in a very, very, very tight situation, a difficult situation, a very challenging situation. And he says, Hatta yura bayadu ibtihi. We saw the paleness of his arms. Obviously his arms are what? High up. And it's a very serious situation he's asking Allah for. That is not always necessarily the same as warafa yadayhi. And he did what? He raised his hands. Are we understanding this? So at the end of the day, if we have a specific hadith that is authentic, that stipulates this is how the hands should be raised in this situation, and not like that, then we do that. And if we don't, then it goes with the general principles. If you made qunut al-witr, should you raise your hands like this until the paleness of your arms is seen? Maybe not necessarily, but you have to do it like you're catching water. It can't be open. It's all what? Open. Because there's no specific hadith that's directly to the point, stating the mannerism of the hands being raised. How the Prophet prayed, hands, knees first, hands, chest, navel. We have all hadiths on that. Sahih and what? Da'if. Everyone understand this? So we take the Sahih, don't take the Da'if. Or what if it's an issue in which there's no hadith whatsoever specifying how the hands should be raised in the qunut al-witr, let alone if they even should be raised therein. Everyone understand this, Sheikh? So at the end of the day, to keep things simple, if you don't have no specific text, raise your hands in a moderate way that you feel is a benefit for you. If it was me and I was making qunut al-witr behind the imam, I would raise my hands like this. This is what I would do. Me personally, I would do it like this. If a person wanted to cup them, I wouldn't do that. I would keep mine what? Like this. And Allah knows best. Fadal.
Sometimes, like, you may see people, like, before the imam finishes the, like, the first rakat, before he finishes reciting, you see the imam sometimes bringing his hands down before he goes into a ruku.
Clear. With regards to imams who make the takbir, or before they even make the takbir, he says what? Wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. Hands go down?
Yes.
Then he says Allahu Akbar, right? Is that correct? So on and so forth. Me personally, the hands should be moved after or with or before the takbir. If a person has not made the takbir yet, and he's not planning on making the takbir, the hand should not be moved. So you finishing the ayah of the Quran, this is where you've stopped in the surah or the ayah or whatever, however you're reciting, it does not initiate takbir. Wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allahu Akbar. Or Allahu Akbar, hands, or Allahu Akbar at the same time. Hands raised right before the takbir, hands raised with the takbir, hands raised directly after the takbir. Before then, I wouldn't do that. And obviously when the imam comes from ruku' or from qiyam to ruku', it's one of the times when he should raise his hands, like the Prophet ﷺ used to. Many imams do this. The last thing that I'll say on this issue, Allahu Alam where this comes from, at the end of the day, there are many reciters of the Quran and imams who feel, we've said this many times before, that there's a separate culture for recitation. There's different ahkam for reciting that aren't proven in the sunnah. And that's problematic. Sujood al-tilawa, sujood al-shukr, wearing this color, facing the qibla, having wudu, has to be based off of the text. Either the hadith, and if not the hadith, then the athar of the Sahaba, Umar radiallahu anhu, Zayd ibn Aslam, Ibn Abbas, Kala. You take it, but it's not mandatory. As far as it's okay to say this, it's alright to make this supplication, it's okay to recite like this, it's okay to do this, because the Qur'an have done it. Yani, there are no different rules. And we've explained this, Wallah alhamd, is that in al-Islam, the rules are Qur'an and Sunnah. Ijma' are based off of what? Quran and Sunnah. Understanding of the Quran and Sunnah. How the Salaf understood the Quran and Sunnah. Qiyas, a systematic analogy. This isn't mentioned, but that's mentioned, and these two things are similar. We meant Qiyas. It has to be based off of Quran and Sunnah. Precaution has to be based off of what? Quran and Sunnah. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't go near zina. Said the dhari'ah. Cutting off the doorway to vice. Because that thing that it leads to is mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. Everyone understand this? Everything goes back to what? Quran and Sunnah. That's the core of Islam. The Quran and the Sunnah. Every single thing has to go back to those sources. Everyone understand this? Wallahu a'lam. Fadl. Buying books? No, it's nothing wrong with buying books faster than you can read them. No, it's nothing wrong with that. Having a lot of books can inspire you to read more. Or you could buy books for your son. You could buy books for the next generation, for the Muslims. Okay? You could benefit from looking at the books, thinking about the books, the aspiration, and Allah knows best what's going to happen in the future. And most importantly, you never know when you'll need that book. You never know. Someone may come in your house, they may be debating, they may be arguing, says, hold on, 1 second. Thank you. You have the source. You never know when that book will be out of print. You never know when the book will be gone. Only Allah knows. The regret, Yeah, hasratan. The regret that you have when you don't buy the book, you come back the next day with the money and it's what? Gone. You never know when the book is going to be banned. That's right. In America or outside of America. This person is now dead, he's dead, he's locked up. They do what? Take the books. You can't find it anymore. So when you have the ability to buy a book, buy it. And if for me personally, if I had more money, if I was affluent, if I was wealthy, if I was rich, only Allah knows how many books I would what? I would have. Many of them I may not even have the ability to what? To read. Wallahu a'lam.
This is HG in the UK, ruling on a pen with a bit of fake gold on it to issue gold.
Questions from where?
London, UK.
London, UK. This is our last question tonight. What's the ruling on buying a pen or having a pen that has a little bit of gold on it? First and foremost is it depends whether you're going to wear the pen or whether you're going to write with the pen or whether you're going to give the pen as a gift or have the pen sitting there. Different rulings for all of those scenarios. In brief, the ulama of Islam, they say, is that if there's a little bit of gold on the nib or the cap of the pen and it isn't enough gold to be sold, it isn't enough gold to be weighed. There's no value in the gold. I'm not saying that this is gold. I'm not saying that it's not. But as an example, this nib here, let's say the nib was 12 karat, 14 karat gold. The nib. If the nib was removed, can it be sold? Is there value? If it's value in it, then they say it's impermissible for a man to have the pen or to wear it. And others, they may say that if the nib can't be sold, there's no value, then it's what? Permissible. Also, the ulama of Islam, they mention certain small pieces and additions. It could be like this on the cap here, just around the tip, like that. It's a trifling amount of gold. It's of no tangible value. You can't pawn it in. You can't melt it into anything. And it's shay'un ghayr maqsood bihi. It's not the intention behind the pen. Everyone understand this? Sometimes you have parts of a watch or parts of certain phones may have what? Gold in it. That's not the intention. It's not the same as having a gold watch in which it's made to what? To look nice. Everyone understand? So there's a difference. So the ulama of Islam, they mention is that there are different scenarios with regards to a man having a gold pen. Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah, he gave the fatwa that a man should not have a gold pin. And qalam, having a qalam, ya'khud hukm al-libs, is like what? Wearing. And there are others who have different details and different rulings. The points that I just mentioned and given you make it much easier. How much gold is on the pin? What's meant by the gold? Is it plated? Is it solid? وهكذا. Huh? Allah Azza wa Jalla surely knows best. Thank you very much for tuning in. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah accept your ibadah.